Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace, once again joined by Reading Order Extraordinaire, Blake Whitlow. He's the one that put together the Spawn Reading Order that's in the show notes. Encourage you to go and take a look at it. On that note, we are up to Curse of Spawn number 9 and 10, which finishes up in Curse of Spawn 11, so it's like a 3-issue, but Spawn 62 sort of in the middle of it, or at least the second half of Spawn 62. It's all kind of weird, but we're about to get into a really interesting era of Spawn. And I say that only having read 62 and 63 and not beyond that. 63 ends with this crazy cliffhanger. So, these one, Blake and I were talking about it right before we started, and these two issues, I don't know. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of Angela. Like, I know she's a popular character, but I don't know, especially with, where we left her last, where she's not even an agent of heaven anymore. It was almost like, so why am I reading about her? Why do I care? I mean, it is cosmic and it is big, but as much as we've talked about Spawn as a street level character, and yes, possible general in Malbolge's army, his Hell army fighting against heaven. The scope of that is big, but Spawn never feels like a cosmic character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Angela feels like a cosmic character, like she's out in space. And I know that's not always the case. She's teleporting and jumping around from here to there. And Elysium is not necessarily in outer space and more like, an alternate dimension kind of thing. But the way it's always drawn, she just feels like a space character, like a cosmic character to me. And that's why she feels so out of place in Spawn. But I don't know. What do you think?
I personally really like Angela. How she's handled in this particular arc, I'm not crazy about. The writing is kind of take it or leave it. There's lots of magibabble, just kind of filler words to make things seem a little bigger than they might actually be. I don't know. But her character, I appreciated from beginning to end. It's kind of interesting how they've incorporated like this science fiction aspect to this spiritual aspect. Like, she's not an angel in the conventional sense that most people assume an angel to be, like a warrior in God's army. You'd expect like magic and wings and weapons and swords and shields and stuff like that, a halo. But she's just like this down and dirty, like gritty, hot, monster slayer. She just goes places and kills things. And that's like her only job. And then after seeing early on the creation of Anti-Spawn, when Jason Wynn was turned into the anti-Spawn, angels and celestial beings have like space stations just floating around Earth. So it's this weird sort of amalgamation of like science fiction, but also like this spiritual aspect. And this arc is kind of like more of that. It's like supernatural, but also sci-fi in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, and I guess, if you want to talk technical, all superheroes are science fiction on some level, and Spawn falls into that. Even if there's some horror elements and whatnot, but he's not what I think. I guess when I think of sci-fi, I tend to think more along the lines of hard sci-fi, and that's definitely not Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: having gone to Catholic school for 9 years, I've seen very, very many images of angels over my lifetime. And usually it was long white robes, sometimes glowing, sometimes not, whatever. They certainly never wore gold bikinis and had ribbons floating around them. So take that. I don't know if Angela's an improvement on that or not. So anyway, let me go ahead and share my screen. So as I said, we'll be talking about Curse of Spawn number 9 and 10 in this particular episode. There you see the cover by, I guess it's by Dwayne Turner. McFarlane has his name on there too. So does Capullo. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure who did what here, but it is a cool looking cover. Inside the front cover, we're told that this arc or this issue is called Limbo, written by Alan McElroy, pencils by Dwayne Turner, inks by Danny Miki. Tom Orzechowski on copy edits and letters. Cover pencils, Dwayne Turner, Todd McFarlane. Cover inks, Miki and Capullo. So yeah, I guess all four of them worked on it. And then colors by Todd Broeker, Mark Nicholas, with a special thanks to John Gordon, and art direction and design by Brent Ash. So I will say that I'm pretty impressed, even though we jump around a lot between the Curse of Spawn issues in the reading order. They're all written by Alan McElroy, at least all the ones we've covered so far. And so he's really ranged the gambit here. Like we said, this one's very sort of sci-fi, and yeah, he uses some magibabble and made up words and whatnot to kind of make it sound big and, epic in scope and whatnot. But, this is coming on the heels of the arc that we just covered with Suture, with the serial killers and all the horror. I mean, he's just flipping a switch and going completely from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. And then this is followed by the Jessica Priest storyline that we already covered, those 3 issues, which is, again, very different from this and different from the serial killer. So give Alan McElroy some credit for some, versatility in story here. But as the issue starts off, again, we remember last time we saw Angela, she'd, given up her role as kind of the number one warrior in heaven, the number one hellspawn slayer, and she's out there and she's working as a mercenary, and she's been hired to go kill this monster called the Argus, which we're told hungers and it feeds on blood and screams. She was called in as this freelance hunter angel to basically kill this thing. And so, we see her battling it. Again, some fantastic Dwayne Turner art here. But it's not just as easy as her showing up and defeating it. And as she's fighting it, she notices this kind of shadowy figure who I guess is going to become very important. I mean, he plays a big role in this story, but he's also very mysterious. We don't necessarily know who he is, but he's watching her, and that kind of throws her off her game a little bit. And the Argus kind of gets the upper hand. And, we're told that this guy watching he's got this face of darkness, the specter of death, and how he watches impassively. And yeah, Angela's captured, and we're told that this guy, his name is Durgis, whatever the heck that is. And it's almost like Angela sees him as a nightmare come to life. So again, he'll play a pretty important role. But before we get to that, as she's captured by the Argus, she starts having these flashbacks. So the first one here is a woman in Africa whose tribe was attacked by a fellow tribe. She's the only one left. She's fleeing from them. She's holding her newborn baby next to her, and kind of inspired by the maternal instinct, I suppose you would say, this overwhelming genetic drive to protect her newborn baby. She actually fights off a lot of the men that are attacking her, and they're sort of finished off, luckily for her, by the fact that there are lions around as well that kind of finish off. They smell the blood that she's caused, and she ends up climbing a tree and putting her baby in the tree, hoping that he'll be safe. And then, the implication, we don't see it, the implication is that she's eaten by these lions as well. And if you notice in that final panel there on the second page, bottom right panel, there's the Durgis watching this all unfold as she's eaten by these lions. And then an angel comes, and we're told instead of death, an angel descends and carries her child to safely. She feels a profound sense of peace. So that directly leads into another flashback where time has moved forward. I mean, that one seems like, it's way back, kind of birth of man kind of thing. And now time moves forward a little bit. We're in ancient Egypt, Hebrew slaves, the whole story of, I was going to say Noah, but Moses leads the Jews out of Israel. But this is before that time when they were there being used as slave labor to build pyramids and whatnot. And there's this old woman, Ashra, and she's watching one of her sons be brutally whipped as he goes about his work, and she stands up for him and due to him kind of being tortured, I don't know the word for it, a bunch of the equipment falls and smashes him to death, and she's obviously devastated. She doesn't feel, especially at that time, that any parent should ever outlive their child. So she ends up kind of suffering the same fate as the woman in Africa. She's basically whipped to death, and as she dies, she knows peace because an angel comes to take her to heaven. So, at this point, we're not exactly sure, like, okay, why are we being shown these flashbacks, these images? We're not exactly sure. And then the scene shifts back again. The story jumps around a lot. Scene shifts back to the planet where Angela had gone to defeat the Argus. We see that she's captured. She's been unconscious, having these visions. Now she's conscious again, and she's like, I hope those were dreams. I'm not exactly sure. I had hoped my being captured was a dream as well. No such luck. She's trapped in like this kind of web sort of stuff, and the Argus itself looks like this giant alien spider, this huge spherical cybernetic organism is what we're told, pulsing with green anti-life force. So obviously she's worried. She's like, well, why did this thing capture me? What is it planning on doing to me? And she's trying to figure out a way to get loose and to complete her mission. She's been hired by Kron, we're told, to go and destroy this Argus. So the Argus kind of lays a neuro net on her, and I don't know if it's trying to like steal memories or if it's just purely a torture device. We're told that Angela feels 1 billion scorpion stings to her senses, and again she starts having these visions as the pain kind of overwhelms her. And once again, the time has slipped forward here. Now, it doesn't give an exact time, but the implication is we're now in America, and these are African-American slaves, deep south, we're told, and we see this little girl who's looking up at the bloated faces of her parents who've been lynched. We're told that this little girl named Kayla, she sees the face of death through the darkness, white death because the guy's got a hood on. Again, clearly Ku Klux Klan, goes chasing her into the forest, some of the Klan members on horses, and she trips and falls, and she doesn't know how to swim. She's flailing in the water. One of the Klansmen shoots her, kills her. She floats to the bottom of the river or lake or whatever it is that she fell in. She too has that sense of peace as these angels show up to see her. Angels that when she perceives them, look like her mother and father. So again, the scene shifts back to Angela. She's again wondering why she's having these visions, like what's going on. She can't think through all the agony. It feels like razor blades cutting into her, and she's just unclear of what exactly is happening when another vision takes her. This time slipped forward again. We're in World War II. We're in a concentration camp. We see a woman who encourages her 2 kids to run for freedom. Her kids are shot in front of her. She's placed in, I think it's a gas chamber. And again, at the moment that she, at the moment that she passes, she's taken away as well. And what we're told is all these women, right? All these women who at the moment of their death have been taken, I guess I should say females, because one of them was just a little child, but they had a very hard life, like, many women before them, and they all ended up, their souls all ended up in the place called Elysium. We know that's kind of the city of angels, as it were, and they were all merged together and became Angela. So Angela is not just some singular person. She's all 5 of these different women throughout time who have suffered horrific deaths, but in a way noble deaths, where they've been fighting against injustice or fighting to save the innocent life of their child, or having undergone some trauma, or like literally killed by evil in the case of the woman in the concentration camp or the little girl killed by the Klan members. So Angela is in that way birthed from like the very worst of humanity, with the combination of these 5 souls who sort of represent the best of humanity. So it's an interesting origin for this character. I never knew it before reading this, but that's her life force. That's her essence. Obviously, the sum is greater than the just the sum of the parts here, or I should say, the whole, I guess, is greater than the sum of the parts. And we know that her body, the physical body that she has, is just necroplasm or psychoplasm or whatever it's called. So this issue ends with us seeing the Durgis staring up at Angela, and one thing I wasn't clear on, and maybe you have an opinion on this, Blake. I wasn't clear on did Angela know, was this her discovering her own origin? Because it kind of felt like that to me. It's an interesting way, or ironic way, I guess, for her to learn who she truly is, as this giant spider that's the Argus is, crawling up toward her to kill her, I guess, as this character, the Durgis, watches on, we're told, with motionless dispassion. He watches her with the cold stillness of death. And that leads into the next issue. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot that happens in this issue in terms of, there is a lot of action, but it's not action really for a purpose. It's more action to establish the fact that Angela's in danger. And then obviously the fact that we get these flashback moments to give some context to these 5 souls that are, I guess, Voltron together to become Angela.
The way I read it was similar to Spawn. Heaven sort of messes with the memories of its subjects, the way that hell messes with its subjects. Spawn doesn't have a clear image of, the 5 years that he spent in hell. He is only getting bits and pieces of his memory back from his former life. Angela, I think, is kind of in an oddly similar situation where she's getting flashes of, her actual origin. And I think that's probably due to like the dire circumstances that she's in right now. One of the common parallels that we're seeing through all of these little flashbacks is right before they're supposedly supposed to die, they see the Durgis. And Angela now is seeing the Durgis. So maybe this is what's going to happen right before she dies. That's kind of like the implication, like the stakes that I think the story is trying to establish, is that she's getting these flashbacks, she's getting these memories of how she started, and it's sort of like seeing her lives flash before her eyes. And all of those lives ended by seeing the Durgis, and now Angela's seeing it. So what does that mean for her going forward? Are these souls about to be killed for the second time? Maybe.
Yeah. So
I also think it's interesting that Angela, time and again, has mentioned that she's been around for like thousands of years. So I think it's interesting how all of these souls are actually from more contemporary time periods, and that somehow the souls of beings that hadn't even existed yet somehow gave birth to her thousands of years ago. I don't know. It's magic.
Technically heaven should be outside, and we've seen that because Angela herself says, I think actually this next issue we're just about to talk about, where when you go to Elysium, you can go into the timeline at any point. You know what I mean? Like you can go back and fight medieval Spawn. So time might not necessarily have a meaning in Elysium. So, all right. Well, let me go ahead and share issue number 10. There again, we have a fantastic Dwayne Turner cover. Alan McElroy again on story, pencils by Dwayne Turner, Danny Miki on inks. Tom Orzechowski does editing and lettering, and Broeker and Nichols on Nicholas on the colors, with Brent Ash doing the art direction and design. Quick recap here. Angela's been hired to destroy the evil rampaging this planet called the Argus, and when she becomes captured, when she's distracted by this mysterious Durgis character, there's flashbacks where she learns that she's basically the amalgamation of the lives of these sacrificing souls. And yeah, it's not the most complicated summary, because really, when you think about it, not that much happened in issue 9. But we're told that the Chron is activated. It's been thrown into overdrive, and it's basically the Argus that's activated this crone thing, which is a threshold for the heinous orderless sprawl known as Limbo. So I guess this Chron weapon is basically going to wipe out the universe, lead to some giant cataclysm. And so this is what Angela is supposed to be trying to stop. But again, she's trapped. She's been tortured, and she's kind of lashing out, saying, "You better let me out. I promise you, I'll win the battle." But she hasn't been able to free herself yet. So I don't know. Maybe it seems like just bravado to the Argus. But again, that this mysterious character of the Durgis just seems to just want to stand and watch. In that way, he kind of reminds me of the Watcher. So it's not specific that this is a flashback here, but it definitely seems like it's from before. As we go to the City of Angels, obviously Angela's no longer captured. So yeah, this is her having been formed, as we saw last issue, from those souls, and she's talking about or the woman, the other primary. That's what the number one warrior in heaven is called. The number one primary, whose name is Catherine, is explaining to Angela kind of the rules of the game, as it were. Hey, here's what we do. We kill hell spawns, and this is where she talks about, yeah, you can kind of go and fight them in whatever time period they're in. She shows Angela kind of the trophy room where they keep all the trophies of the hell spawns that they've fought. And then Angela is lucky enough to meet God. And just like when we saw God previously in the regular Spawn series, it's this little old woman. So Angela's obviously kind of taken aback by what she sees here. She asks, hey, am I in heaven? And in true cryptic fashion, God doesn't necessarily come right out and answer any of the questions that Angela has outright, which I did appreciate, because it might be a trope, but it works. There's a reason that's been done time and time again in any number of stories. But God, in the form of this little lady, does show Angela what they're fighting against, does show her an image of Malbolgia, and talks about how evil he is and what their mission is to try to stop him. So at the end of that flashback, again, we switch to the current time where Angela's trapped, and we see her trying to escape. Apparently she's using her ribbons and kind of using some energy blast to try to escape from this web or whatnot that the Argus has her captured in. Again, remember, this is not a straightforward narrative. You turn the page, and now we're flashing back again. We're back in Elysium. Catherine is training her, talking to her about, what your mission is and how you need to defeat Hellspawn. And I will say that's a fantastic suit of Hellspawn armor behind, on the right-hand page there, behind Angela. And so it not necessarily clear why Angela is chosen to be trained by the primary, by the number one angel. There's any number of angels that we've seen before that want to have that honor of being the primary, and there is a lot of honor and prestige that goes with it. But for some reason, maybe it's the souls that make up who Angela is, those 5 souls. But she's the one that basically gets the training. So as Angela escapes from the Argus, all of a sudden, turn the page, and again, abrupt shift in the story. Now she's on Earth. Just all of a sudden, like last time we saw her, a couple pages ago, big, she's using her ribbons. She's cutting herself out of the kind of web or goo that the Argus has her in. There's a bright flashing light. We get a flashback for 2 pages, and then she's on Earth. So if you're wondering what the heck, yeah, I kind of was too. And she even recognizes she's on Earth. She's like, listen to these, there are a couple of guys that see her kind of materialize, and they make some comment. She's like, listen to these bozos. This must be Earth. Guess that doesn't really bode well for what planet Earth is like. And of course, she has shown up very close to where Spawn is. And so, that here comes the next part, like, why Spawn? Why did she show up where she did? But she's not going to necessarily look a gift horse in the mouth. Of course, she goes to Spawn, and Spawn's surprised to see her. But she does ask Spawn for help, basically. She says, everything happens for a reason, and, I must be here because you need to help me. There's this fracture in the multiverse, basically, caused by this evil creature named Argus, and Spawn's like, okay, what does it have to do with me? And Angela's like, man, it's no wonder you don't have any friends, which I thought was kind of a low blow. So we kind of leave them there bantering back and forth and take a quick peek at Cagliostro. And this is really interesting. So he sees the Dirges as well. So apparently the Dirges didn't really have anything necessarily to do with the Argus, but more is observing Angela, because he clearly has followed Angela to Earth. And when Cagliostro sees him, he says, no, it mustn't be, not you. And clearly they have history. Clearly they're familiar with each other. And Cog, I didn't even know he carried around some giant knife under his coat, but immediately attacks. And the Dirge kind of just tosses him aside, like very easily, very, very easily. And seems for the first time to have a little bit of an expression, a little bit of a smirk on his face as he dispatches Cagliostro so easily. So Spawn's like, okay, so you got tossed out of limbo and you showed up on my doorstep. Wait, why are you here again? And Angela's like, if I knew, if I had the answers, I wouldn't be talking it out with you and trying to figure it out, right? But Spawn, again, I don't know if it's the history that he has with Angela where he just doesn't really seem to want to help. But before he even gets a chance, there's this giant bolt of anti-life force, we're told, that folds out of the null and hurtles into the heart of New York City and blasts the tower, the headquarters of Heaven on Earth, the Elysium Embassy, we're told. And once again, as death has occurred, I don't know if the death of angels, death of whatever, I don't know if there's actually any humans or whatnot in that Elysium Embassy, but you see the smoking, smoldering ruins there, and whose face do you see in the clouds but the Dirges? And that's how this issue ends. So Apocalypse, Armageddon, Alpha, Omega, Dirges, the end is now. So yeah, regardless of what Spawn's feelings are for Angela, I really think he should get off his butt and help her, because it's clear that this Argus and the Kron weapon that they've activated is going to wipe out like everything. So yeah, that's this 2-issue arc. Again, it finishes up in 3, but we're going to break it up because we've got to talk about issue 62 on its own, because we always want to do the Spawn issues, the Spawn series issues all on their own. So bit of a cliffhanger ending for this one, and we'll pick it up after we talk about 62, which is sort of a different perspective of Angela showing up on Earth. So again, it's there's not a whole lot happening here. You can sort of sum it up pretty quickly. We get a little more context and a little more backstory on Angela once she's been formed from those 5 souls. We see her getting training from the previous primary. We see her literally talking to God, going on a walk with God, and getting some context about why they do what they do. And then she goes to Earth and she asks Spawn for help. He gives her a bad time. Then the bolt of anti-life blows up the Elysium Embassy on Earth, and Cagliostro attacks Dirges, having recognized him. somebody that he's seen before. So a lot of moving parts, not a lot of forward momentum for the story itself, but fantastic Dwayne Turner art, as always. Beautiful shots with the rain falling down on Durgis, which I enjoyed. Tons of detail in the throne and the skeletons and the worms and all of that. So gorgeous book to look at. I just don't know, for the reasons I talked about at the top with Angela feeling more cosmic. I don't know how well that works with Spawn. So it definitely isn't my favorite arc, but I do appreciate getting the context for Angela. And I wonder, like, she's not that interesting of a character, or a character that I'm not that interested in yet. But I know you've read so much farther, Blake, so I wonder if I'll come around to liking her more when I get, more of her. Although I suppose at some point she disappears because McFarlane doesn't have the rights.
Mm-hmm. There's about 1-2 more arcs after this point, and I feel like those arcs really like bring her back to kind of what she used to be in that Angela miniseries, where her and Spawn had like a lot of banter, a lot of back and forth. So it was more of the vibe that I always get from the two of them is sort of like a Catwoman Batman sort of relationship. It's like, are you going to fight me today, or are you going to flirt with me? At least that's kind of how I got it. I mean, if I remember correctly, in the Angela miniseries, they kind of get it on, don't they?
It's implied that they do. They're both in the dark and they don't even know where they are. And
But who knows what could happen in the dark.
Yeah, and it's cold. And, again, she just wears a gold bikini and he's got his cloak. So, yeah, it's definitely implied. And then it's hinted, it's brought back up in the regular Spawn series when she shows back up in that arc where she decides to leave and not be, that's the whole reason they say they're going to kick her out.
Yeah,
is because they say that she, fraternized with the enemy, basically.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very interesting issue because it gives us some more context about Angela. It introduces this new character, Durgis, and we actually see Cog kind of get thrown around. Like he's been very much the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the mentor type character up to this point. This is the first time that we've ever seen him actually like just get flopped around. I mean, even when Spawn's suit was freaking out, grabbed him, picked him up, he looked like dead on serious, like, I'm not afraid of what's happening right now. And here he just glances, notices Durgis, is like, I gotta stab this guy.
Yeah, he flips out, man. He goes ham, and
Serious.
Durgis is just like, meh, just swats him away like nothing. So yeah, very, very curious about this Durgis character and whether he might show up again. So yeah, anything else to add about this issue?
Not this issue, but actually, yeah, there is one thing in this particular issue. When we first get the flashback of Catherine and Angela speaking, interesting little bit of art that I thought. Her staff has all the Spawn coins or whatever, like what we saw back when Angela was first introduced, when she killed medieval Spawn. He went up in a puff of smoke and left behind like a little Spawn logo coin. And she has like 35 of those.
Yeah, she's got
her staff. Shows that she is a hardcore Hellspawn killer. I mean, if that wasn't apparent from like the trophy room and stuff, but just like seeing that many like all clustered on there, like she's been around for a minute. Also in the previous issue, in the flashback to ancient Egypt, there were centaurs, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
It was an interesting little thing to add in there. It's like, I guess the ancient Egyptians had centaurs, or the ancient Egyptians were all centaurs. I don't know.
Yeah, I never know when Todd is directing people to throw in things like that. And the reason I say that is because I got a chance to chat with him real briefly recently, and I did ask him, we just finished talking about the suture arc, and I did ask him, because we both wondered, she's got so much potential about her coming back.
Mhm.
And he said it's tough to juggle so many characters and to find, another way to bring her back. But apparently, in terms of just having her show up in the book, apparently she's in the background in a recent issue of King Spawn.
Really?
Yeah. So
Oh
I was
my
like, I'm
goodness.
gonna have to go and peruse because I didn't notice her in the background, but I've been reading, I've been kind of skimming those books because I'm not caught up on the regular series yet. But yeah, apparently just in the last few months she's been in an issue, not like a speaking role or anything, but
Like
but
he does where there's like a collage of
yeah,
enemies and stuff. Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool. Oh
yeah.
man.
So he mentioned, he's like, yeah, maybe we'll find something for her that's more involved later down the line. So I
Interesting.
got
Maybe like a mini series or something.
yeah, or just have her, and I still contend that she would be great for the Scorch, the team book that they're doing
Hmm.
right now.
Hmm.
So even if it's only for an arc or two, but anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode, everybody. Next time we'll be talking about the one that crosses over again, that moment when Angela comes to Earth, but sort of from the perspective of Spawn, as well as catching up on what Spawn's up to, the happenings on Earth. And then we'll shift back with Curse of Spawn, number 11, which finishes up this arc. So that's what's coming up for the next 2 episodes of Spawn Daily. Don't forget to go check out Blake's reading order that we're using so you can follow along and know what books are coming up next. We appreciate the support as always, and for you guys joining us. You really seem to be enjoying this trip down Spawn memory lane based on the download numbers. So we appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.